The coat is still heavy. The person whose anger arrives too fast, whose room has narrowed, who experiences themselves as clearer than they used to be. That person is still here, still coming through that door, and still watching. Now I want to talk about the weight itself, not what it does to the person carrying it, where it came from, who put it there, and why. Most things that arrive in a room like this one were not made here. The conversations were made here, the relationships, the arguments, the silences, the moments of unexpected warmth. Those belong to this room. They grew from the people in it, from their actual contact with each other, from the ordinary friction and tenderness of people sharing space across time. But some things arrive already made, already assembled. They come in through the door the way a coat comes in, worn by the person, yes, but not made by them, picked up somewhere else, fitted somewhere else, and carried in here as though it were their own. There's a fear that arrives already knowing, already certain of what it fears and who deserves the fearing. Not grown from experience, received, fully formed from somewhere outside this room. The question isn't why people receive it. A fear with a shape and a name is easier to carry than the formless kind. When life is genuinely hard, an explanation is not nothing. The question is colder than that. Who made it? Someone made it on purpose. There's a version of this observation that softens it into something more comfortable. A story about misunderstanding or cultural friction or the unintended consequences of well-meaning things. That version exists. It's not the version I'm describing. I'm describing the deliberate kind. The kind where someone, somewhere outside this room, looked at a room like this one, at the people in it, their genuine fears, their real uncertainties, the actual difficulty of their actual lives, and understood that difficulty as an opportunity. A room in difficulty is a room that can be directed. A room that's frightened is a room that's looking for somewhere to point the fear. And a room that's been given a face to attach the fear to, a clear cause, a named responsible party, a story that explains everything that's gone wrong, is a room that will keep coming back for more of the story. Because the story is the only thing making the weight bearable. That's the function. That's what the manufacture is for. Not everyone who has ever told a frightening story had a strategy behind it. People repeat things they've received without knowing they're repeating them. The person who carries the fear into this room didn't make it up. They picked it up. And the person who gave it to them may have picked it up too, further back in the chain. But somewhere in the chain, there's someone who understood exactly what they were doing, who looked at the room, at the genuine human need for explanation, for belonging, for somewhere to put the formless anxiety of a life that's harder than it should be, and decided that need was more useful, unsatisfied. Because a room at ease doesn't need the story. A room that's found its own footing, that's looked at the people arriving through its door and found them ordinary, that's discovered through actual contact that the threat didn't materialize. That room stops listening. It has no more use for the fear. And that's the one outcome the manufacturer cannot afford. So the story has to keep arriving, fresher each time, more urgent, more confirmed. The mechanism is always the same even when the means change. The story finds the channels the room already trusts, or builds new ones, slowly, until they're trusted. And it arrives through them looking like information. Not persuasion, not argument. Information. The thing that simply tells you what is so. A frightening story travels faster than a reassuring one. A room that's just been told something alarming is a different room from one that's just been told something settled. The alarm moves. The settled thing stays where it is. The manufacture is built around that wiring. The story is always alarming because the wiring was never designed to distinguish a real threat from a manufactured one. And then it confirms itself. The next thing that arrives confirms the last. The commentary confirms the story. The response to the commentary confirms the commentary. Each source pointing at the others, each one lending the others its borrowed authority, until the picture assembled has the density and solidity of something the person arrived at themselves. They didn't arrive at it themselves, but it feels exactly like they did. That's the point. That's what it was designed to feel like. What closes in the process is the gap, the space between receiving something and believing it. In a mind that's working as it should, that gap is where the question lives. Is this true? Where did this come from? Who benefits if I believe it? The manufacture is specifically aimed at closing that gap, at making the question feel naive, at making the person who pauses to ask it feel like the one who hasn't yet understood how serious things are. The gap is the target. The gap is what's being closed. The room means everything in all of this. Not incidentally, not as background. The room is the prize, not any individual in it, the room itself. The fact of people in the same space, rubbing along, finding the others familiar, unthreatening, ordinary, discovering through contact that the story pushed so thoroughly and the reality don't match. That discovery, the moment the newcomer answers the question and the room pauses and something updates quietly, is what the manufacture exists to prevent. Because if it happens enough, the manufactured story loses its grip. The fear that was supplied meets the evidence and softens. The gap opens back up. The person starts asking the questions again. The room, simply being a room, undoes the work of the manufacture, which is why the manufacture's work is never finished. Why the story keeps arriving, keeps updating, keeps finding new faces to attach the fear to when the old ones have become familiar. The room keeps threatening to do what rooms do: hold people together, make them tolerant to each other, dissolve the careful distance the story requires. The manufacture has to keep running to stay ahead of it. The received fear that walks through that door didn't start here. It was made somewhere else, by someone with a reason to make it. And it arrived looking like something the person had always known. It wasn't. It was put there. And a weight that was put there, deliberately, by someone who needed it carried, is a different kind of weight from the one you packed yourself. The fear you arrived at through your own experience of the world belongs to you. It means something about your life. It deserves to be taken seriously because it grew from something real. The fear that was manufactured and delivered and confirmed in a loop until it felt like your own true perception of the world, that one was never yours. It was forced upon you, at a cost you didn't agree to pay, by someone who needed you carrying it more than you needed to carry it. That's not a comfortable thing to sit with. It implies that something you've been certain of, something that felt like the clearest and most honest reading of the world available to you, might have been assembled for you rather than by you. That the certainty itself was part of the design. A fear you can name as something that was placed there, rather than something that grew there, is a fear you have a different relationship with. It doesn't stop being real, but its claim on you changes. That's where the ladder starts. Not yet, but close. I'll still be here when you get back.